English step by step, phrasal verbs with down, step 1. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please click like and subscribe, and you can request a lesson in the comments below. Here are some common phrasal verbs with down. Now, I've also put some example sentences because often it's difficult to see the meaning of a phrasal verb if you don't have a context. So the sentence gives you a context. So the first one here is break down. Now this can be used for machines, engines, and particularly for cars or any vehicles. The example here is the car broke down on the motorway. Now, many phrasal verbs with down have this idea of something stopping or something falling or something ceasing, like slow down, that's moving to a stop, or fall down, that's like collapsing. So here we have breakdown, which is the idea of something stopping working. The next one is slow down. The example sentence: the traffic slowed down in the city centre. So here we have the adjective slow made as a verb, to slow, and in this case it's to reduce speed. So speed up is to increase the speed, slow down is to reduce the speed. The next example has 3 parts. Cut down on. Now, you can also use the 2-word phrasal verb cut down. Here, it's the 3-word phrasal verb because we have an object, sugar. His doctor told him to cut down on sugar. So, if you reduce your consumption of something, you cut down. For example, cut down on beer, cut down on chocolate, cut down on sugar. So that means to reduce the eating or drinking of something. The next one is go down. And of course, that's the opposite of go up, which we have in the video on the phrasal verbs with up. So here, go down is to decrease or to fall. Go up, of course, means increase or rise. So here, the temperature has gone down. You could also say the number has gone down, or the population has gone down, or the price has gone down. In all of these cases, it means to fall or to be reduced. So the temperature has gone down. The next one is settle down. Now, the example sentence is the traveller decided to settle down. And in this case, it means decided to stop travelling and make a home in one place, or to find a place to stay and not to travel again. So to settle down has this sense of making a home. The next phrasal verb also has this sense of something finishing, something closing, something stopping. Close down. So the example sentence is the company closed down during the economic crisis. And that means the company stopped functioning. The company finished. You could also say the business closed down, or the shop closed down, or the factory closed down. The next example is number 7, turn down. Now, this phrasal verb has more than one meaning. If we look at the example sentence, we can see a context to help us. I turned down the volume of the music. So in this case, it means to reduce. And the opposite would be, of course, to increase. And this is a phrasal verb in which we can separate the 2 parts of the verb, as in turned the volume down. Now the next example is the same phrasal verb with a different meaning. He turned down the job offer. And that means he didn't accept the job offer. In this example, we can also separate the two parts of the verb and make a sentence with turned the job offer down. So you can see he turned down the job offer, he turned the job offer down. The next one is write down, and this one, write of course means to use a pen or to make sentences on paper, but here we have the idea of putting it on a piece of paper or in a notebook or in any kind of book. For example, she wrote down some new vocabulary, in this case a vocabulary book. And of course we can separate these two parts of the verb, wrote the vocabulary down. The next one is an example of a phrasal verb which is difficult to understand unless you have a context, and you can't understand it from the individual parts of the phrasal verb. So, let down, what does it mean? Well, let's look at the context. The player doesn't want to let down his team. Now, here, he doesn't want to do something. In this case, we can maybe work out that he doesn't want to disappoint his team. He doesn't want to do something negative for his team. He doesn't want to make his team embarrassed or ashamed. He doesn't want to let down his team. And here again, we can separate the two parts. Let his team down. He doesn't want to disappoint his team. So let's just check our understanding of these phrasal verbs. Number one, the car broke down on the motorway, and in this case it would be stop working. If you want to put it into other words, you could say stopped working. Number two, the traffic slowed down in the city centre, and in this case it became slower. Number three, his doctor told him to cut down on sugar. In this case, we would have to use a phrase like reduce consumption. In other words, reduce the consumption of sugar. Number four, the temperature has gone down. In this case, we could say decrease or fall. The temperature has decreased, the temperature has fallen. It has gone down. Number five, settle down. The traveller decided to settle down. And in this case, we could put it into other words as stop moving around. Number six, the company closed down during the economic crisis. And in this case, we have to say something permanent has changed. So it has closed permanently. Number seven, I turned down the volume of the music. And in this case, we would have to say reduced, or a word with the same meaning. Reduced the volume of the music. Number eight, he turned down the job offer. Well, in this case, he didn't want the job, so he refused the job or he declined the job. Number nine, she wrote down some new vocabulary. Well, in this case, you have to write something down on paper. Let down, the player doesn't want to let down his team. In this case, he doesn't want to disappoint his team. At this point, you might want to look at my overview video about phrasal verbs called What is a Phrasal Verb? And you can do that by clicking the link in the top right-hand corner of the screen now. And when you've finished looking at the different points, as on this screen, then you can come back to this video to get more detail about these phrasal verbs with down. So these 6 points here about phrasal verbs are covered in detail in the overview video. By clicking the link, you can watch that. So now let's look again at these phrasal verbs with down, so we can see what kind of phrasal verbs are they. The first one, break down. The car broke down on the motorway. Well, we can see there is no object. The car broke down. You could also say the machine broke down, the engine broke down. These are examples of verbs with no objects, so it's intransitive. The next one, the traffic slowed down in the city centre. Again, the traffic slowed down, the car slowed down, the tractor slowed down, the plane slowed down. Again, intransitive. Now the next one has an object. His doctor told him to cut down on sugar. Sugar is the object, so that makes this a transitive verb. Next one, the temperature has gone down. Now, the temperature has gone down, that means it has fallen, and there is no object, so it's intransitive. The traveller decided to settle down. Again, no object, intransitive. Number 7 has an object. I turned down the volume of the music, so that makes this a transitive verb, and it also makes it a separable verb, because here you can say turned the volume down. And it's the same with number 8. He turned down the job offer, transitive. He turned the job offer down. Well, you can separate the two parts of the verb. Again, she wrote down some new vocabulary. She wrote the new vocabulary down. So that means it's transitive and it's separable. And the last one is the same. The player doesn't want to let down his team, transitive. Let his team down, separable. So that brings us to the end of this Step 1 video on phrasal verbs with down. So now you can move on to the Step 2 video in which you'll find a practice exercise. Remember, click like and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this.